Hi all, we're going to look at Ivanchuk's last round slaughter of Cheparinov. So playing black, Cheparinov played e4 and Ivanchuk played the c5, Sicilian defence, to knight f3, knight c6, d4, so it's all standard stuff, open Sicilian. Now Ivanchuk chose e6 and after knight c3 he played queen c7. So this queen c7 reserves the possibility of this bishop coming out to either c5 or b4 later on in the game. Actually in the game it came out to b4, as we'll see. So bishop e3, now black played a6. After queen d2, now Ivanchuk played knight f6. White castled queenside, bishop b4. And this is quite a theoretical position now. After f3, knight e5, knight b3. I looked this up in the letsplaychess.com master collection and this has all been played before, highly theoretical. Black playing b5 here now. But in this position, Cheparinov, he played bishop d4, which statistically, on a position lookup next move analysis, this isn't as good as either queen e1 statistically or queen f2. But anyway, so bishop d4 was played. And Ivanchuk simply retreated his bishop back to e7 now. So what has he achieved with this pesky bishop b4 back to e7, instead of moving it there in one go? Well, he has provoked this bishop to come to d4 and this knight to retreat back rather passively to b3. So after queen f2 and d6, we look at the position now and see that black has a nice position with potential for bishop b7 and later b4, putting a lot of pressure on e4. So it seems to be a pleasant position. With this queen f2, Cheparinov is strengthening his control of this b6 square though. Black has to be careful a bit about this bishop b6. g4 was played and now Ivanchuk just castles into White's seemingly ferocious attack. So after g5, knight fd7, rook g1 was played. And potentially this could be quite dangerous for black with like these ideas of rook g3 to rook h3, queen h4. It would seem to be quite dangerous. However, Ivanchuk calmly played bishop b7, so a nice solid positional move, exerting more pressure on the e4 square, with the threat now of b4 positionally to intensify that pressure. King b1 was played, and now we see rook fc8. So a little bit controversial, the rook coming, leaving the defence of the king side a bit to strengthen this pressure on the c2 square, on the c file in general. Rook g3 now. So is Ivanchuk worried? Well, actually, this move is a little bit controversial here. Rybka gives actually a3 as a more cautious idea, because after this rook g3 and b4, the knight is actually forced basically to come to a4, where it's a sitting target for later bishop c6. Because if here knight e2, then queen takes c2 check and it's all over, mate in 4. So knight e2 is not possible. So knight a4 is basically forced. So the idea might be now knight b6. So Ivanchuk just plays bishop d8 and he reinforces his control of that b6 square. And actually, Rybka thinks black's already better here. Much better, almost. Like 0.47. Half a pawn's worth. So after knight c1, we see that after bishop c6, White has to suffer these double pawns now. The knight can't go anywhere because black's securely protecting that b6 square. So after b3, bishop takes a4, White's pawns are in a wreck. On the other hand, maybe knight b3 is going to be useful. Here Ivanchuk plays very accurately though. He plays first knight c6, and one of the ideas, so he's chasing that bishop back to e3 as the game was played. And now Ivanchuk, he's got this potential of this diagonal coming up, and it's lovely what he does now. He first plays queen b8, so he's vacating by queen b8 he's supporting knight b6 takes a4 or bishop b6 to swap off these dark square bishops. White played now rook h3, carrying on with the attack. But it's a bit slow. Ivanchuk proves it's slow because he plays knight b6. he's got a defensive resource in mind to Queen h4, which was played next. He plays simply h6. Not only is it a defensive resource, it's also an attacking resource in many variations. Because when he plays knight takes a4 later, if this bishop can come to this diagonal, this bishop and knight will work very well together on the c3 square, as the game shows. So Queen g3 was played, and now we see knight takes a4. And white doesn't dare take on h6 here because of bishop f6. Let's have a quick look at that. G takes h6, knight c3 check, king h1, and now bishop f6 is quite crushing for white in this variation. So threatening discovered checks and everything else. So that h6 was an attacking and defensive move. So white actually played rook d6, and now Ivanchuk captured control at f6 anyway, brutally, by just taking on g5. So munching up, it would seem to be, as a general principle, bad to try and play where you're weak. But here, the key thing is to get this bishop to f6. Now bishop d3 was played, and the bishop comes to f6, so menacing threats now. e5 was played, so white's opening up the pieces for this brutal assault on the black king, but it's actually proving to be harmless. Ivanchuk just played bishop takes e5, and now Cheparinov sacks a whole rook, so the rook has to be taken. Queen h3 check. It looks pretty scary, so a 2700's just sacked a rook against you. Do you panic or what? Well, you just play the only move which is possible, king g8, and after queen h7, the only move again, king f8. Now here, queen h8 is not too dangerous. Let's have a quick look at that. In the game, rook d7 was played, but let's say queen h8 was played. This would be the only move again, king e7. And now let's say bishop takes g5. Is this scary? No, because of king takes d6, and there's no more attack. So in this position, rook d7 was played to threaten queen h8, mate in 1. But now we see this bishop and knight coordination. Ivanchuk just plays knight c3 check, because after king a1, there's knight b5 check, and that's crushing. Because if now king b1, then there's simply knight a3 mate. So that's pretty brutal counter-attack. And if black interposes anything here, it's just losing material for nothing. So just bishop takes d4 check, rook takes d4, and either knight takes d4, just queen e5 even, and it's all over. There's no attack for white. So that was quite a brutal counter-attack, forcing white to resign here. Let's have a quick overview and summary of this game. So Ivanchuk playing black, he played this queen c7 idea, and now white played pretty standard moves, but in this position, according to the Let's Play Chess.com Master Collection, bishop d4 isn't scoring very well. It's actually statistically favourable for black, and Ivanchuk really hammered white in this game, so it really cast doubt on white's whole strategy of allowing this b4 with this awkward knight on a4. So after this b4 was played, because white didn't even play a3 here, this knight was a sitting target for bishop c6, but first Ivanchuk inserted bishop d8 to stop any knight b6s. So once that knight was a target, the double pawns and this diagonal started to be quite treacherous for the white king. So queen b8 supported the idea of knight b6 without allowing bishop takes b6 when black will be forced to play queen takes b6. He wants to be able to recapture with the bishop. So he plays his knight b6 now. And this h6 is a lovely defensive and attacking idea. So it's almost as if Ivanchuk's, he's put himself on the brink of a kingside attack. But actually he's the one attacking white now, as well as gobbling this pawn on a4. All he needs to do is get his bishop to f6. It's amazing, but white's pretty hopeless against this simple idea. White's just busted here, in fact, according to Rybka. So e5 takes, and this combination is just harmless. It's just too slow, this rook d7 idea, because of this knight c3 check, followed by knight b5. So with this game, Ivanchuk won the tournament by 1.5 points, clear of Topolov, and a 2950 plus FIDE rating performance. A wonderful end to his tournament. I hope you enjoyed that. Please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.